Hello and welcome to the second channel for Tales from the Trip. I'm your host, Trip Keeper, and on today's video, we're going to be doing a new Frightening Trip Reports to Fall Asleep to series, and that is the Penis Envy ones. Now, if you don't know what Penis Envy mushrooms are, they are very potent mushrooms, more potent than your regular mushrooms that you can get, Let's say you did 0.5 of normal mushrooms, it would be like a gram of that, for sure. If you did 0.5 of Penis Envy, it would be a gram of normal mushrooms. There's a lot of more potent ones. You can take enigmas, and then the most potent ones on Earth right now that we have discovered are called Paniolus cyanescens, which are pretty intense. If you want to hear that talk that I did with the expert cultivator, learned how to create DMT and stuff, go listen to my last podcast, episode 10, on the Trip Sitters podcast. It's a very informative podcast about mushrooms, cultivation, DMT, just anything really. We brought up a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of good things in there. I thought it was a really good podcast. We're moving on. We're gonna read these stories. I got my beer with me. If you guys can guess what it is, I will give you a big toaster or something. Give me a toaster, let me put it in the bathtub, let me turn it on, and let me just sit there in the water and let it happen, right? Okay. So this first report is by Soji. 3.5 grams of albino penis envy. I saw the ugliest thing in the universe. To anyone here who may be inexperienced and looking to experiment with psychedelics, I cannot stress enough that your current frame of mind going into taking mushrooms is likely the biggest factor in determining whether or not you have an enjoyable experience. That is true. You need to be in a good mindset. This is probably something you've heard from many people that you might not take seriously, but fucking take it serious. This is some serious shit that can really fuck you up if you aren't ready for what it'll show you. I found out that the hard way today. I've been growing a block of penis envy mushrooms for quite some time now and have tripped on the same organism multiple times, even taking significantly higher doses than what I took today. Yet this trip was by far my most horrifying one. Oh man, I've had a lot of horrifying trips on penis envy recently. That's why I had to stop. I stopped doing everything. Like I stopped doing kratom. I stopped doing mushrooms, DMT, 2CB, MDA. I was doing all that crap. So I'm done now. I'm full on clean, except for alcohol, of course. Except for alcohol, caffeine, and my prescribed medications. So that's what I'm literally doing. But I'm not drinking alcohol every day or anything. It's like half the week, I'd say. So I mean, you guys are gonna say shrooms are safer, but I made a deal with the man up above, so I got to keep those deals and promises, or else it'll backfire on me. For some perspective on why I did this, I'm in a very tricky situation in real life. I'm not in good shape mentally or physically. I'm lonely and don't have much going for me. So I thought I needed a big kick to get me out of a deep hole. I decided to take 3.5 grams tonight to prepare for a 10-gram dose tomorrow, to test the waters a bit. I also made a tea using the lemon tech. I should add, the last trip I experienced, whilst not as terrible as this one, still left me quite shaken up, and I hadn't fully recovered before taking this dose. I took this dose spontaneously without any preparation. Horrible idea. So 5 minutes after taking them, I tell my grandma I'll go into the room and let her know when I feel anything. Oh boy, your grandma's that close to you? Then it hit me. I felt extremely scared, immediate regret. It was like the fear you get just before going on a roller coaster when you try to get the operator to let you off, but he doesn't. Yeah, that kind of fear. I've never experienced that kind of fear because I fucking love roller coasters. 10 minutes later, I ran to the bathroom, trying to puke up whatever was in me before it could fully take effect. Then I went to the couch to try to rest. By 25 minutes in, I was feeling the effects strongly, so it must have fully absorbed, despite my efforts to throw it up, My heart was racing. I was breathing absurdly hard, hands shaking from dread as my reality began melting away. I had an overwhelmingly intense feeling of impending doom. That's exactly how I felt when I went to the movies on Penis Envy. That was just, oh my god. I took 1.5 and I was dying like that. I started scanning through my memories of things I read about psychedelics inducing schizophrenia, and this terrified me even more. Yeah, you don't want to do that. I had an extremely hard time grounding myself and trying to differentiate between having some sort of mental episode and the effects of mushrooms. I never had lasting effects before, and I tried to tell myself this, which calmed me down for a little bit. My grandma sitting next to me asked if I was seeing visuals. She had tripped the day before and seen plenty of kaleidoscopic things, to which I replied no. I had no open-eye visuals, only closed-eye ones. This reinforced my belief that I had went insane. I convinced myself that the psilocybin must have interacted with my brain in just the right way, at the exact time and circumstances necessary to fry my brain and turn me insane. Fry my brain and turn me insane. That sounds like an old acid song I'm gonna relive to you guys. This acid fried my brain and turned me insane. Yes it did, yes it did, yes it did. Perhaps it interacted with the tomato sauce of the pizza I'd eaten earlier and synthesized a neurotoxin that was actively killing me. I believed I had done permanent damage to my brain and would never recover. Mamma mia pizzeria. I quickly closed my eyes, counted internally, and breathed in and out rhythmically, repeating the mantra, "I'm okay," to myself. At this point, I was really about to lose it. I couldn't escape because when I closed my eyes, I felt like I was being stretched thin upon the endless geometry waiting for me. So I kept them open, but my eyelids were extremely heavy. It was a battle. For the most part, I was in my own head. Then I realized a children's cartoon, The Backyardigans, had been playing, apparently my recommendation, saying a ton of trippy stuff. I was absolutely bombarded by synesthesia, and so the colorful words and playful tunes were making my insanity meters go even higher. I felt like I was about to become one with the cartoon, just existing as a humorous concept within pixels. I think that's what we're all doing in general. After a few minutes of feeling like a fool, I decided I needed to get out of the living room. I moved to my room and played some calming music, which gave me something to focus my attention on. This helped me through the next hour or two with some challenging thoughts and introspection regarding my current state in life. Eventually, I went to my bedroom and laid down. I was so exhausted. My mind felt like it had been put into a blender. I didn't know if I would be sane tomorrow or not. It didn't matter. I lost the energy to think about it. Lying there, I saw blankets of eyeballs, which I perceived as a personification of my own weirdness manifesting, beautiful geometric shapes, and finally, the universe's ugliest creature. It was an eyeless flesh and trash monster with mouths all over its body, skin embedded with occasional tin cans or pieces of garbage. Each one of its thousands of mouths hung open, and it moved as if it embedded in a tsunami of trash. It was riding a wave of trash, an infinitely fractal wave. Surprisingly, this wasn't the scariest part of the trip. It was one of the most humorous bits. I was simply astonished that my own mind could create something so ugly. I felt that I had offended myself, and that was hilarious to me. Then, finally, it was over. I'm still considering that 10-gram dose, but I'll be rescheduling that for quite some time. Wow, what a story, Mark. How's your sex life? No, it was a good story. I liked that one. It would have been on the main channel if it was longer, but it was only ended up being like around 6 minutes around there. So yeah, this is why I like. But you know, perfect formatting, perfect spelling. I mean, I didn't see one problem in that story. Like that was a perfect way to format a damn story. And that's why I need to get it started off. I barely messed up there. That's the reason why. If you guys upload stories like that, it will be read easier for me, and I will have a good time, and it'll be so much better. Instead of having to, for me, you know, if I see a really good story and then it's just a long paragraph of text, I've been putting it into Google Drive and editing it myself, and there's like so many spelling errors and stuff, and it just bothers me to the point where I don't even want to read it. So even if you have a really great story and you have it in a full format like that, like where it's just a big paragraph, I'm probably not going to read it. You know, I'm probably not going to. So I just want to let you guys know that, because it does take a while. Because when I try putting in ChatGPT, you got to put in like sections, because I tried putting the whole story in there. I said format this, and only formatted like half of it. And I didn't want to keep on doing it like for the whole thing, so I just did it myself. Now I've done it before. I've definitely read stories where I've fixed it myself and had everything like that, because some have just horrible spelling errors, but some people are from different countries, so that makes sense. But you know, there's other reasons why people don't spell right on my channel. Not gonna get into it. Yeah, no. So, but I appreciate this guy. It was a good story, or girl. Did they say it was a guy or girl? I forgot. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Good story. I like how the story ended with with the title, basically. You saw the ugliest thing in the universe, and that was like the ending of the video of the story. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting monster, I'd say. This one is very long, I think. This next one, I don't know if I should read it or not. This other one is a long paragraph, but on the second channel, it doesn't bother me as much as it does on the main channel. This last one is very well formatted as well. So there's 3 good formatted ones and 2 terrible formatted ones that I'm going to read here. All right, let's see here. All right, so this next one, this was uploaded 2 days ago. Shout out 2 days ago by Spinal_Spook. A fishy trip on 2 grams of penis envy. Let me make sure this is a horrifying story. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be horrifying, but it could be just like scary. Let's see. I'm seeing the word skeletons. Panic. Okay, we'll read it. This is just a very long one. That's why I'm just like, I don't know if I should or not. I don't want to like read the whole thing and be like, well, that wasn't too bad, which it might not be. I don't know, but maybe it'll be a good story at least, you know. All right. To give context for this trip, those involved include me, call me Slim, and my best mate Chaps, both 19 males having. They're not 19 males, they are 19-year-old males, excuse me. That would be weird if they had 19 people with them. Having known each other since the age of 2. I'm 6'6", live in Dorset, United Kingdom, and I'm about 70 kilograms in weight. No typos, I'm just tall and skinny. Yesterday, we both endured a 2-gram penis envy mushroom trip, taken orally via milkshakes. Okay. We both have limited experience with shrooms, having done them a handful of times together previously. My first time being a 3.5-gram penis envy trip, which went a lot better than it should have. Still, most of my experience since had been rocky, to say the least. Apologies, this is my first trip report. I think it's quite long. It's okay, dude. It's okay. As for my vices, I'm a heavy stoner, smoking about 1 gram a day, give or take, usually give, with the occasional cigarette and daily vaping having previous experiences using alcohol, cocaine, crystal MDMA, hash, nitrous oxide, ketamine, there's the ketamine, diazepam, I've heard this drug before, I think this is an opioid, tapentadol, it's definitely an opioid. Pronunciation. Sorry, let's see here. I just want to get it right. Tapentadol. I think that's like a British thing for sure. That's not, you don't get that shit in America too much, I don't think. Tapentadol, hydrochloride, THC syrup / vapes, and pingers. All right, we got some pingers in here. Shout out pingers. This trip occurred last Saturday, July 24th, or July 20th, 2024, and comes at the end of a very heavy 2 weeks, which starts with my girlfriend leaving for holiday, introducing a lot of worry and stress in my days as I'm a massive overthinker / worrier. The fortnight then consisted of having my dog put down, breaking my bong, an inflamed gum as a result of the impacted wisdom tooth, losing my vape, paying for the dentist appointments at a bad financial time, and having to pay to renew my passport for a holiday. Well, that sounds like a terrible, terrible time to take mushrooms, sir. I don't think it's a good idea. On the last Friday, I overslept, so got in late, and was jobless within the hour with no notice or written warning. I still had a positive mindset on the trip and felt it could really offer me something good to take away. My girlfriend was also on the plane back when we started, so I felt much security in the fact she was safe and soon to be home. Chaps and I began organizing the trip once he called me saying he wanted to do psychedelics that afternoon, and I was immediately on board with the idea. I've been looking forward to tripping more and more recently and jumped at the chance. We debated other substances we can get a hold of, namely LSD and 2CB, neither of which we had tried, but settled on shrooms for convenience and comfort, as I was hesitant to try LSD without testing it first and hadn't done a lot of research into 2CB. Honestly, 2CB probably would have been the best choice. Sorry, there's a loud-ass car outside. Excuse me, I'm trying to record here, buddy boy. Oh my God, did he talk back to me? Did you guys hear that? Of course he did, because that was me. Did you guys know that? I was talking to myself. In preparation, I made food as I hadn't eaten a lot that day. I made 3 scrambled eggs over 2 bits of toast and took some multivitamins and iron tablets, grabbing some for Chaps in case he saw it worthwhile. I also brought 3 Valiums in case either of us needed an out. Ooh, can you bring me some? I had smoked previously that day and did a few bongs before leaving to avoid smoking too close to the trip, but to still chill me out. So this is what I noticed the problem is, okay? People smoke weed and then they do shrooms, or they do shrooms and then they smoke weed. That's where the problem happens. I don't think smoking weed with shrooms is a very good idea. I don't think people should be doing that. People can, but I've noticed that's where a lot of my trip reports where the problems start, when they do weed with it. Now, if it's not, it might not have been hitting at the time, so that could have been, this should just probably be the Penis Envy mushrooms, but I'm just saying, in general, I've seen a lot of reports where that's been happening. We lived 4 houses down from each other, making meetups and seshing easy, and his parents were out until late that night, so we had free reign over the house provided we didn't disturb his siblings. Both are older and probably not too keen on shrooms. He was on his way back from acquiring a quarter of Penis Envy when he stopped off at Tesco to grab supplies. 20 minutes later, and we were over at his house getting down to business. I offered him the multivitamins I had taken, and he took the same as I. Chaps wanted to take 3.5 each initially, but I talked him out of it on account of me now being very aware of how lucky we had been our first time through recent exposure to trip reports. We settled on 2 grams, and after a little blender confusion, we made the mixture in his kitchen. 4 grams of Penis Envy, milk, vanilla ice cream, Oreos, and Kinder Buenos. We poured the concoction into 2 pint glasses, mine being ever so slightly more full, and began drinking at 8:50 p.m. We sat in the lounge, talking of the night we were to have, what we would like to gain from it, etc. Within 15 minutes, we had both finished our glasses, and each began rolling a joint in the patio in the garden, planning to go for a walk while the initial effects took hold. Alright, so we took another joint here. Before 5 minutes had passed since polishing off my glass, I began to feel spaced out and vaguely uplifted in a hazy manner. I didn't think much at the time, as I often get a sort of placebo high for a short period soon after taking something orally. Though my interest peaked when Chaps turned to me and described he was feeling the exact same. We shrugged it off, left the house, and began to walk down the alley between our houses, around to a field behind my garden. The feeling persisted, and we were shocked at just how blue the base of the flame of my lighter was, as well as the brightness of the surrounding garden fences and a slight purple hue to some objects. We later found this hazy feeling did not fade, and instead directly escalated into the trip. So they were smoking with this. That's where the problem lies, I think, here. That could be the hazy feeling. I don't know. Okay, so they didn't spark it up yet. Okay, so now they're going to do it. We got to the field and sparked up our doobies, walking down the path to an unknown destination as we smoked. We both stated we felt very hot, and Chaps made the decision to dump his coat in my garden as we walked by. I chucked his coat over my fence, aiming for the sheltered seating, and chose to keep my own on in case it rained or Chaps needed to borrow it. Eventually, after about 15 minutes, we had arrived at a bench along a forest path that we used to smoke bongs on, and decided we would sit, listen to music, and wait. I immediately took off my coat and jumper. By this point, the spaced out feeling had only ever intensified, and my limbs and clothes felt very heavy. The body high was increasing in strength, and we both began to feel uncomfortable with the oncoming intensity, opting to look for music that was calmer than the chill rap we had on. Chap switched the music to calm jazz, and an instant wave of comfort was put upon me. I was still uncomfortable, but the improvement was massive. Jazz can do that to you. Jazz can do that to you. Let me take a sip of my beer. Or 2. Or 3. What if I just kept going the rest of the time? You just do a 4 or 5 or 6. My feet firmly planted in the ground and visuals ensued. The dimly lit grass around us began to morph in organic patterns, very similar to some of the trip simulations that form dogs and animals. Trees and objects around me looked peculiar. I turned to Chaps saying, "Yeah, I'm definitely..." Wait, that was not a Hello. "Yeah, I'm definitely tripping now. I can't lie." Okay. He confirmed it was properly hitting him too. See, no American says properly hitting him. He confirmed it was hitting him pretty hard. That's probably what we would say. But yeah, no, I love reading I love reading trip reports from other countries because I love hearing the words that they would say, like hearing it as an American saying it, like properly hitting him. Now, maybe if you're an American and you love European culture or British culture, then maybe you'll use it. But yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny to me. So let's just go back. He confirmed it was properly hitting him too, and I looked around, still trying to figure out if I was okay or not. A faint psychedelic pattern briefly overlay my vision, and I stood to stretch, attempting to relieve myself of discomfort. I then realized my balance was a little off and my legs felt wobbly, for a lack of a better term. It was at this point I could be in for a little more than expected, and a little sooner than expected too. I shared my newfound discovery with Chaps and indicated my desire to go back to the house before I reach a point where it becomes a struggle. He was reluctant at first, but thankfully agreed at about the same time my legs began to tremble and my body started longing for a comfort I couldn't identify. We disembarked our seats and set off home. I put my coat on and wrapped my hoodie behind my neck underneath it, which seemed to give another small layer of comfort. With light rain beginning to fall through the dusk as we trudged along toward the field. For me, this was truly a godsend. As the droplets landed on my skin, they calmed, cooled, and grounded me. I looked up at the sky, closing my eyes, basking in my newfound relief, and visualized each of the droplets as small, clear, vertically flat fish with bright colors flowing through their insides. I could feel them landing and bouncing off my face, and this calmed and amused me greatly. I began to feel more comfortable as we walked back across the field, and I saw a geometric pattern stretch out along the grass in front of me. I was very excited at the sight of this, and near giddy when I began to turn and realize this pattern spanned the entire floor surrounding me. We continued on our return. Soothing jazz played in the background, which both of us agreed more so put on by the shrooms than by Chaps. I held my fence in an area out of view, not wanting to risk being seen while getting Chaps' coat through the windows of my house. The rain had soaked it through as I had apparently missed the sheltered area when throwing it. But regardless of my state, I hopped the fence with no problem and returned the garment to its owner, who didn't seem to mind its soggy condition. The rain seemed to calm the visuals slightly. As we headed back up the alley, we debated whether they would again grow in strength upon our return. We were correct. Of course you were correct. Upon our return to the house and subsequent move into his summer house, I seemingly lost the ability to navigate the light switch in the dark and had to be assisted by my friend's phone torch. Phone torch? What is that? Is that just the phone light? I mean, that's a funny way to call it. Just imagine having a flame coming out of your phone. That'd be so cool. I flicked the switch on and was greeted by the pink and blue bulbs lighting up the space. The summer house is a brilliant place for a shroom trip. 2 small sofas with a table between. Soft, colorful lighting with fake plants adorning the doorways. Floral patterns across all pillows and blankets. A carnival wheel tapestry hung on the wall. The wood grain in the walls and ceiling is visible, and all in all, it's a very comfortable place to trip balls. By this point, we both began tripping very heavily. We sat on a sofa each with the speaker in between us. The trip was positive, but had an air of uncertainty to it. Gradually, the music went from jazz to classical piano. We both clung to it like a life raft for the whole trip. I would close my eyes to the warping flowers and shifting walls and be greeted by bright, simple, and flowing patterns of golden, orange, and yellow with strands dancing to and dictating the music. The high heat over my body had transformed into a great warmth that filled me from head to toe and beautifully matched the stunning closed-eye visuals. This warmth seemed to blend into my clothes, likely in part due to their dampness warming in my body heat under the towel Chaps had supplied me with. This warmth then extended to the sofa and pillow I was resting on, seemingly becoming part of my physical body. I was so comfy, I felt like some old corpse, perfectly integrated into the ground and immobile, but in a good way if that makes sense. This feeling was overall similar to amazing sex, just before climax, over my entire body for the large duration of the trip. I had the stupid teethy grin plastered across my face, as wide as my skin could allow, and despite the usual hatred of my smile and teeth, I could not care less. We lay there for hours, mostly in silence, letting the music take us on its journey. I would shift between open and closed eyes intermittently, which felt like 2 separate trips entirely. By this point, Chaps had asked about putting on some Oriental Japanese music. I agreed, open to the concept of impulsive choices, and encouraged him to try closing his eyes. He obliged and later told me he had one visual of a koi carp gracefully swimming in a dark box that his vision was limited to. Very interesting. Excuse me. Uncertainty remained and occasionally reared its head, but I did a fairly good job of keeping things positive for the most part. That was until a wave of uncertainty hit me in between songs and dug its nails in. By the time the next song started, I had already associated it with discomfort. My beautifully euphoric visuals were entirely and near instantly replaced by a dark abyss, shout out Pastel Ghost, which featured several bright whites, almost TV blurred skulls. They were dotted about randomly and would spin on the spot. They weren't proper 3D skulls, nor were they just 2D. It was more like a pendant of some sort, like a mask that had 3D features but was overall mainly flattened. These visuals startled and unsettled me, in part because how abrupt the change was. I quickly opened my eyes and closed them again, hoping to return to my golden sanctuary, and to my dismay, was again met with the same exact sight. I briefly alternated between open and closed eyes looking for peace until I opted that the closed eye visuals were more bearable. That's crazy. Closed eye visuals more bearable? What is this, Datura? No. The skulls faded and were hence replaced by more obscure and dark visuals, almost smoke or mist-like, morphing into vague skull and skeletal forms. I willed myself that I was okay and that that moment would pass, but my fear and discomfort grew. Regardless, I kept assuring myself of my condition and my closed-eye visuals changed again. I saw a headless skeleton lying on its side facing me, various bones missing across the form. I kept my will strong. So the theme of this trip is like skeletons or some shit. So death, maybe? Is this what you're seeing? Because I see when I did shrooms the second time where I had my horrible trip, I kept on seeing death. I thought I died. And the mushroom told me a fucking hilarious joke that I can't fucking remember, but it was so fucking funny. I started dying laughing when he told me it, or she. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but. It was about decomposing or something. It was a back in my day kind of joke, and it was like, yeah, it was one of those. But I forgot what it was, man. It was so funny. But it was about death, I think, and yeah, a lot of death in those themes of tripping for sure. Let's see how much we got left. Okay, there's not too much left. Its detail increased, and it got dirtier and older. Dark, ashy ground formed around it, creating a large, cavernous basin. It was circular-shaped with an increasingly sloped hole in the center, looking about 20 to 30 meters across. Stone walls reached up in a dome over the top, creating a cavern with a natural walkway around the hole. 4 short beams or rocky outcrops extended from the opposite sides of the hole, with the original skeleton located on the closest one, and other new skeletons rested on the others. But then, the scene began to get damp. Moss started to coat the skeletons and surrounding terrain before more and more vegetation spawned or grew all around. Light now poured into the cavern from a hole at the top in the very center, and water poured into the basin from various streams, and possibly a waterfall lower down. My fear began to weaken, and I began appreciating the sheer beauty of the scene before me. Note, I wasn't directly in the scene myself, I was just seeing it like a 3D image of sorts. Or a pendant, maybe? It was around at this point in time when I realized the warmth across my body had never left me, but had just been pushed aside in the wake of panic and fearful visions. Again, I felt better and realized I think skeletons and skulls are cool. I was amused and the light of the scene kept brightening before I returned to my golden haven once again, though now with a more of a green hue. My flowing colors then took an ever so slightly more green hue and morphed into waves of eels and or catfish cascading down. A face appeared in front of me composed of hundreds of small eels, all oriented facing down. Okay. And I could feel that my face was also made of tiny eels. Though this might seem unpleasant, and remembering the face, it wasn't a particularly nice sight, but I was so amused by it that it was only positive, and the feeling was nice. Throughout this whole ordeal, I continued on reassuring myself, and eventually aspects of my life, worries, and insecurities came into my mind. I also blindly accepted these and told myself to not worry, it will be okay. I soon saw my silhouette in the gold-green light, small and far, with hundreds of tiny, dark, and grimy dots flowing from both the bottom of my vision, where there were thousands, and also from the silhouette where there were far less. They flowed and thinned, moving off to the right and out of my vision. After the trip, I realized these dots were my worries and insecurities, and I realized while writing that the dots from the bottom of my vision were flowing from my chest. As for the silhouette, perhaps it was my subconscious. Regardless, I soon returned to my safe haven, partly assisted by the song changing over, and me and Chaps chilled and tripped with the music for the following hours. From my understanding, the peak began to fall off at around 11:15, with us remaining stationary until a little closer to 12. As the life began creeping back into us, we talked more, and I eventually began showing him some clips from Disney's Fantasia, insane animation perfectly tied to the music. But we agreed it would have been unpleasant to watch if we were chirping any harder. Later still, I posed the offer of a joint to Chaps, and we made our way to his patio after rolling. Two joints were had each over the final hours of the night, which were spent going over various events that had befallen us that trip, with a brief, stress-free interaction with his mom through the kitchen door once they were home. Chaps told me overall the most displeasure he experienced prior was our mutual discomfort at the bench, and that his night after the fact was exclusively pleasant. This I was happy to hear, as I much rather suffer the negative experiences myself as opposed to those I am with. That is a true statement. That's how I am as well. If someone else is having a bad trip with me, it's giving me a bad trip anyway, so it's like I'd much rather just have it and keep it to myself. I managed to teach myself to know that deep down. I am okay no matter how bad the world around me is spinning or churning from whatever measured poison I've absorbed this time. Other than that, you just gotta sit, grit your teeth, and wait. You'll be okay. I'm not sure how adept my friends are at telling themselves that, and only goes so far coming from a third party. So for the time being, I'll just hope they're spared of that fate. I went home around 3:30, feeling clear and satisfied. I had no lasting visual slash HPPD, and while playing a quick game of War Thunder before sleep, I noticed that if anything, my reaction times and coordination had not been hindered or possibly even improved. In the succeeding days, I feel slightly more confident than usual, which was the main thing I had set out to gain from the trip initially. Enough to generally make me feel a bit better about myself, and for me to finally give a shitty mate my take on why he was such an insufferable prick to be around, This only caused him to double down, steal my food, leave, and shrug off my criticism upon his later return. Still, it felt good to say. I did not get my Pringles back. I do also find it worthwhile to mention I've always had an affinity towards oceans and their residing fauna. Even at a very young age, I still feel more confident generally 6 days later while finally polishing off this report and feel like my life has been positively swayed by this experience. In ultimatum, this trip was overall amazing, and I wouldn't change one bit. It brings me hope that it's possible for my worries to one day wash away like that. It came at a time when I needed a little bit of love at most, and I'm so grateful to Chaps and my dog for bringing me his experience. I'm very much looking forward to dosing the remaining 1.5 with him at a later date. Well, you're lucky that was a good story because it wasn't horrifying, but at least it was a good story. That's all that really matters to me. That's what I was worried about. I was like, am I going to really, a fishy trip on 2 grams of penis envy? Is this going to be a scary one? But yeah, no, it was a pretty long one, and it wasn't horrifying. There's some horrifying aspects to it, but overall, I feel like if the OP is comfortable with their effects, I can't classify it as a scary story unless it's Datura and people are just crazy. I've read some positive trip reports on Datura, myself, and just reading them, just they said it was okay. No one why do people bash this drug, and they're seeing witches and spiders come out of the ground, maybe that's why, but this one, handled it well. I think it could have went worse if you stayed outside for sure, and if you didn't have that music playing. But yeah, no, I appreciate you uploading it. I appreciate you formatting it mostly correctly here, so appreciate the story, dude. But yeah, very, very long one, very, very long one. But we got through it, didn't we? Now this next one is, oh boy, it's a long paragraph, a very long paragraph, monsieur. And the next one is a shorter paragraph, but it's still a longer paragraph. Not as long as this one. All right. And this next one is by Key-Present9639, 3.5 grams of albino penis envy, realizing the intricate nature of the universe, from 14 days ago. Saturday, July 13th in Vancouver, I tripped on 3.5 grams of albino penis envy while on vacation. I and L was watching TV with H while V was sleeping. H took 2 edibles and I took the shrooms. Yeah, no, this is formatted completely horribly. I'm sorry, dude. I just have to point it out. It's already, I could just tell by the first 2 sentences. It's the I's not even capitalized, but the H and V are, so that's good. But yeah, let's just keep on going. H asked occasional questions as she's never been around shrooms. I told her what I could and ate the shrooms with enthusiasm. I read a page from a Yoga Sutras book and then needed to use the bathroom. The bathroom window magnifies the sun and gets very hot. I got hot and tried fitting a towel in the magnifying window, but realized I was in a trip symptom, like when you rearrange your entire bedroom and then rearrange it back to how it was, and should just stop. I relieved myself and then plopped onto my bed. I played this field trip app and let it take me. I thought how my room was like a cocoon for my metamorphosis. It was octagonal and warm, color-wise and heat-wise. H came in to check on me and asked some questions. I described how it felt, like the shroom was seeping behind my psyche and brain, enveloping itself into my conscious and subconscious. It was like a controller, a benevolent meta being that knew exactly how to take care of me, like a plant therapist. She left and I continued to field trip, eventually feeling the urge to throw up. I went to the toilet and when the feeling subsided, I returned to the bed. The feeling came back and I rushed to the toilet. Again, the same thing. On the third time, I simply observed the feeling. I thought it was strange, like a constant need to puke but not puke. Like a sickness worming inside of me, like from a bad food. I returned to the toilet and sat there on the ground. The feeling subsided, but left enough so I knew I must say, just in case. I became comfortable with the toilet and sat next to it, feet against the toilet paper roll. Soon I started to laugh, harder than I ever laughed. Unbelievable comedy discovered. I had realized the funniest thing in the universe. It was unfathomably hilarious, funnier than giving an ass wine grapes. The joke began by realizing the personality of a toilet. It was wondrous, wise, and true. Toilets are nearly shunned by society, ignored and only used for emergencies. They hold and clean for our refuge, yet we deny them any extra thought. It was funny how personable the toilet was. A toilet is more than a commode. It is a feeling, a perspective on life that we all must occasionally face. I remember at home having the same thought before. The toilet in all of its shining porcelain, shaped alien and smooth as a UFO. I started to care for this toilet, which made me laugh even harder by the ridiculous thought that one could care so deeply for a toilet. I realized the toilets throughout history, chamber pots, buckets, castle chutes, latrines, the porcelain throne. I admired the toilet, and that was fucking hilarious beyond compare. I started talking to the toilet. Oh my, porcelain fits you. You are porcelain, yes. This was said with the diction of a gay fashion designer. Okay, let me read that. Oh my, porcelain fits you. You are porcelain, yes. I began to see life the way the shroom does, and as if the shrooms were waiting for my new perspective, let themselves go. The feeling grew and came out in puke. I was totally fine with it, as it was a sign that I had embodied the shroom and no longer needed its corporal form. H came to check on the sounds. Are you good? She said with concerned care. I assured her, don't worry, this is good. This is good? Yes, I responded. It must happen. She looked in the bowl and trailed off like she does. I laughed it off. This was a true laughter, like when somebody truly can't understand something, so all you can do is laugh, even though they are worried. H went to the sink and did her skincare. I looked down at the bowl in growing disgust. I didn't mind the puke, but the smell was getting to me. I want a new toilet, and I gave it a flush. Done and said with glee and childlike wonder. I hung with the toilet for a while longer and kind of even hugged it, even though I knew it was probably gross to do so. That specific toilet is a close friend now, and the race of toilets are chill as fuck. Then I started getting epiphanies. I started viscerally reacting. My mind was being blown literally every second as the thoughts expanded. The thoughts that everything was a culmination to this point, that everything has ever been known is now known, and I can use this to help the world. I had realized the truth of the universe and was realizing I am and everyone is God. We all control our reality. I became elated as every second this became more complex and beautiful of an epiphany. I laughed at how everyone will be overjoyed to hear the news. All right. Pretty wild story, I'd say. I heard V talking to H about asking what's happening. V, get in here. I told them how I am Jesus, as Jesus knew the same things. Jesus, I came to know, is more of a mindset, like Buddha, than just a person. V smiled but looked worried. Y'all look concerned. Don't be. Everything is and will be perfect. You may not understand it, but that is how things are. H and V gave each other a look. Y'all have no idea, and that's what makes it funny. I said in a sing-songy voice. Y'all have no idea, and that's what makes it funny. Woo-hoo. I told them I loved them, I love everyone. I named specific people in my life that I loved and that I couldn't wait to share the secret with. Y'all want to be my disciples? They declined, and I responded once I realized the implications of such a thing. Oh yeah, I get it. These guys usually get killed. It's cool. Live your life how you want. This is where I started to lose grip on reality and forgot that when tripping, you come up, but you also come down. I started believing I'll be tripping like this forever. I then mentioned how I guess I'll be like this till I die, which will be tiring, but at least due to the state of the people in power, I may rest forever soon enough. I said this all nonchalantly, just as Jesus would. I beckoned to smile. V asked, "Why are you on the floor?" "No reason. I just like the tile." Somehow, this all reminded me of a trip from about a fortnight ago when I listened to Jimi Hendrix in the couch and imagined the vibrations dissipating deep in the air before it could go upstairs. Before it could go upstairs, it was like a canyon of sound waves. I went to grab my stuffed dog that I've had since I was a baby and a blanket with native psychedelic patterns. I sat back with my friends and watched Bridgerton, talking incessantly. I got a pimple on my head, it fucking hurts. I was very sociable and confident, knowing everything was going to work out forever. I'm always going to be okay. Everything began to visualize extremely vividly, holding a flow and containing more mass and color than detail. Everything flowed, and it was like I could envision indigenous psychedelic patterns on anything. H checked out my eyes. "Hey, I bet they are huge," I sang. "Huh? I never realized I could sing. I've always wanted to sing," I said after realizing that any time I talk I am singing, fluctuating my voice to emphasize certain feelings. I talked and let go of all my inhibitions. I didn't care if my feet were out or my chest and belly showed. I beamed regardless. I told them how much they are good people, that I like their smiles and that they seem happy. They beamed right back. "I like your face, V." I appreciated H's face and she seemed to radiate around me, probably because I believe I'm in love with her. I knew it. V minded herself and watched TV/her phone, and mostly me and H talked. I told them they are God as well as I am God, which took them aback. It blew my mind that we were all one and all God, but these are separate personalities with free will, as much as God is me, and that is beautiful. Everything was and is beautiful to me. We talked on how I had unlocked speech, how verbiage flowed through and out of me so clearly and smoothly like it was magic. If I felt connected to Terence McKenna right then. I thought to myself, I want to be like Terence McKenna, but for shrooms. I then processed what I thought and laughed at the silliness of the statement. VH and I talked on how I finally understood my favorite subjects and other common get-to-know-you questions. They asked my favorite subject, science or history, and I said history after thinking seriously about it. "I am science," I proclaimed. I said this because I believed I had cracked the code of reality, solved everything that science culminates toward. I stayed for a while watching TV, talking directly to the characters, which I've never done before. I admitted that I loved the show, which I haven't done before either. I wanted my phone but couldn't find it. I wanted to speak to all my friends. I couldn't find it though. This is a common thought loop I have, losing my phone and getting to find it with no avail. I felt really tired, and so I retired room. I went to YouTube and scrolled endlessly as I thought everything was just trash and a waste of time. I started disliking YouTube and disliking what I consider an addiction or strong presupposition to YouTube. H checked on me occasionally, but I wasn't showing my true colors anymore. The shame from the YouTube made me hide my actions and act all fine. I later showered and still felt really high, like I was showering and drying myself, but at the same time I wasn't. I was numb almost. I got more depressed when I heard through the walls, not eavesdropping on purpose, H talking to her boyfriend and saying some things about me, but I couldn't exactly make out what. The fact she was talking about me to her boyfriend and the reminder that she had a boyfriend was feeling of growing detriment. Yeah, that kind of sucks. I decided I didn't want them, V and H, to see me for the rest of the night. I took out the bug screen and climbed onto the roof and smoked a little from 3 different joints. I didn't care for any of them and felt shamed to be even smoking weed. Also, it didn't feel comforting and relaxing like I was hoping for. In retrospect, the shroom was probably preventing the high, so I'd be more inclined to quit, which I later vowed to do. I realized the depression was payment for such elation earlier, as life naturally balances, always, yin and yang, so I thought to not trip for a long time, or smoke, and to focus on my social, health, mind, and spirit through self-means, as to achieve a more holistic, a longer, and healthier life. I climbed back inside and found a good YouTube video. Shortly soon after, H came in saying she smelt weed, asking if I smoked. I was honest and awkward from being found out, especially in such a depressed state. She advised to air out the room, and I slept with the windows open. Hours later, as my mind was racing and my phone was not helping me sleep. The next day, I was shy and quiet, ashamed of my outbursts of temporary madness. Later, we three recounted my trip with joy, and I could then let go of the shame, leaving only the lessons to grow and appreciate. That was a very interesting story, I gotta say. I wish, like I said, I wish it was formatted correctly, because you heard me fucking up a lot there. But yeah, no, if just people in the comments who say, why can't you just read? Dude, I'm telling you, go in front of a microphone and read the story just like without messing up, and then you'll see why it's difficult. Like, you can read it in your mind easily. Like, you could just read this like do, and you can read it to yourself, like even maybe talking to yourself. But when you have a microphone in front of you and you're talking to people, it's a different fucking ball game. It really is. That's why the formatted ones are perfect, because it's just literally, you heard in the first story how I just barely messed up, just maybe like once or twice. But these ones, yeah, no. I appreciate the stories. I think the toilets were the funniest part. But yeah, that would make me sad. I didn't know that H had a boyfriend at the time. So, that's, what are you going to do when you love somebody it's already dating somebody? That kind of hurts a lot. I didn't know that in the beginning of the story. If I wish you would have said it in the beginning, that would have been a better thing to set up. But yeah, now that you can't really do anything about it until they break up or something happens. I don't know. But yeah, might look a little fishy though, if you ask me. Okay, we got two more stories. This one's not as long, but it's still a long paragraph. But it looks like it's typed a little bit better than the other one. That one was had some bigger words in there, surprisingly, but it was just like not. I don't know. Periods, like the sentences kept on going on. The I's weren't capitalized. This is why I can't, like, if I had to read that for a main channel, I probably wouldn't have read that one. But for this, hey, I don't care. I really don't. Next one is by Suitable Ad 5959. I relived a dream I had years ago on 3.5 grams of fresh albino penis envy and ruined a family vacation. Parentheses, complete ego death. All right, this will be an interesting one. Let's see, it has 17 upvotes. Holy crap, did I upvote that last one? Okay, I did. All right. When I was 13, I had one dream where I was walking at a boardwalk, and everything had mechanical morphing to every structure around me and FOV change. Quite hard to explain it. I walked around for a while, lost as fuck, and ended up finding an arcade where once I stepped in, I had tons of tracers and things appearing where they don't belong. I ended up realizing I didn't have feet and only saw my shorts. I felt like I was a floating head flying around the place. I ended up running out to the place into the street trying to find where I was, but the world was changing places every second, and boom, I woke up. 2 years later, I came to a vacation trip with my family, and me and my cousin and our homie decided to bring weed and shrooms to have fun at the place we were staying. We enjoyed most of our days smoking and doing whatever we could until around 3:15 we decided to eat the mushrooms. I ate 3 full mushrooms with the capsules, and 1 capsule thinking I ate an 1/8. I was very wrong. We decided to leave the motel and walk around the boardwalk, and we were enjoying the come up until me and our friends started having a little bit of nausea. We went to CVS, noticing our legs going numb, like the feeling of getting drunk. Once we got inside, our friend had to throw up, so he went to the bathroom while me and my cousin walked around releasing we're tripping balls. After we left, I noticed my vision starting getting distorted, me thinking it's just the regular stuff I've had when I took mushrooms. Once we returned to the boardwalk, I wanted to smoke. We didn't have a vape on us at the time, so I asked to smoke his weed dispo because we smoked up all bud. Then he said, "What? No, dude, you're gonna get a mindfuck trip." I replied with, "Nah, man, I'm chillin', don't worry." After some arguing, I got him to say, "All right, man, don't say I didn't warn you." He passed me the weed dispo, and I kept on hitting it, thinking I'll be okay and just high. I should have listened. After 5 minutes of us walking, I got him to take 2 hits and just relax. Another one where the weed is going to cause the problems. It's going to cause some big problems here. We all found a place to sit at this ice cream place where I noticed my vision started going into extreme distortion. I then started feeling like I am pissing myself and was confused. Then my cousin turned to me and said, "Bro, I just threw up. We got a dip." And my friend also said, "Yeah, I just threw up again." Then I told them, "Guys, I think I just pissed myself." They later reassured me that I didn't piss myself and that I'm fine. I still felt wet, like I had peed myself. I don't know what to believe. After a while of us walking, we were getting close to the rides that they had at the boardwalks when we decided to go into this arcade. I said to them, "Guys, I've seen this place somewhere and felt the same feeling, but I also knew I never tripped here ever." Confused, I went along with it and noticed strong tracers and morphing, objects appearing, just completely tripping balls. After us trying to figure out what to do, we walk outside, and I noticed sounds start to change pitch, like if they're slowing down then reversing. And then out of nowhere, people start reversing backwards in a fast pace. Then it does the same sound and reverse them to walk forward again in a fast pace, until they got to where they were originally. I was in disbelief, not knowing what the fuck that was. My cousin tried calming me down a bit when all of a sudden I went blank into a big FOV to the same mechanic morphing dream I had. There it was. I was here. It made the same reversing sound, but nothing changed. Things morphing into eyes, gears, and rust. I was in shock and just wanted to have a good time, where then I saw my girlfriend seeing me as a disappointment and leaving me, seeing me fail and look ugly. Then I went back to reality when it made another reversing sound. We had to get the fuck out of there. After all of us tried to figure out what to dude. After us trying to figure out what to do, I'm assuming they wanted to say, and him realizing I'm too fucked up, I told him he had to get to my motel without my parents seeing and that I had the key. I tried my best getting there when we got lost, so we returned to his place after me telling him, "I'll act normal, trust me." Once I got there, I noticed all my cousins have their eyes or nose misplaced in a filter on Snapchat or Instagram. I got inside his motel where his mother was there, and me trying best to act normal. I went to the bathroom to try to piss because I felt like I was soaked in my own piss, and then I noticed that I just couldn't, so I gave up and looked in the mirror to see what I would see, because the whole trip I felt like I turned ugly, and it luckily helped me realize I was still the same person and I am fine. I tried laying... God, excuse me. Oh, that's not a fly. I thought that was a fly. Oh my God. I tried laying down and my aunt started talking to me. I realized I messed up. I tried talking to her and kept on stuttering. I used my bad Portuguese as an excuse, hoping it'll get me out, and tried looking at her sober, but also couldn't bear seeing her face start spearing fish scales and eyes. It probably did, but she definitely had a weird look in her face. I ended up trying to get water in the mini fridge, and there ended up not being in there, so I looked at my cousin and said, "Where's the water?" and kept on bugging him for water until he looked around and gave me a coconut water, which I was fine with. I tried drinking it, but it felt like I kept spilling it on myself. Think made my cousin realize I was too fucked up, I had to get out of there. We ended up leaving and went back to the boardwalk. Then he asked for the address to my motel and said he'll help me get there. My vision was in complete distortion. When I tried moving my legs, I would still see in the same direction it was before. I tried giving my cousin my address while living in a real-life glitch world, and I somehow did it. We got there dodging cars because of my dumbass. Once we arrived, the frat boys saw how fucked up I was and helped me get into the motel room. Once I got in, I was greeted to my grandma. She noticed I was fucked up, and I just told her I was drunk. I ended up throwing it all up afterwards and went to bed. 15 minutes later, I was fine. A trip I will never forget. I should have known better. Thank you, God, I'm here to tell this story. If you think you're not a lightweight when it comes to shrooms, you will be humbled. Probably one of the better stories that we read on this one. That's a lesson you got to learn for yourself. That was something for sure. Being at the boardwalk, I've noticed that being on shrooms in the heat is a very bad idea. Like I went to the driving range, and that's it's just not a good idea to do. But yeah, no. I mean, it's fun if it's quiet, not quiet. If it's not as hot outside, like maybe 70, 75, I'd say the highest you should go. Anything above 80 outside, unless you're just sitting out there. Then, if you're doing actual activities like walking around at a boardwalk, I'm assuming it was summertime and it's hot by the ocean. So, yeah. Well, what did they say? It was in Vancouver, or was that the last one? Oh, yeah, that was the last one. But that was cool that he had that dream. Like, it just all comes back. That's that's why I think psychedelics are very, like, I think they have a lot to do with what this world has become, what this universe has become. Because why would you have that dream? You just completely, I've had so many times where I've had deja vu like that. But it's creepy, but it's also very interesting. I love having it happen because it's just like, man, I've been here before. And it happened, sometimes I've had that happen multiple times with the same place. You know, I've been here before. I don't know if it was a dream or if I actually was. Like, well, I guess if it happens more than twice, then you've been there before for real. Excuse me. But the first time, you're like, huh? But yeah. All right, we got one more story. Yeah, let's read this. It's a little longer as well. Let's see here. How far are we? Okay, we got 50 something minutes, so almost 55 minutes basically. So we're gonna go over an hour. Cool beans. This last one's by No Philosopher 7447, revised 4-gram albino penis envy mushroom terror trip. All right, we're ending on a terror trip because I don't know, the last three. I mean, that last one we just read was probably the most terrifying out of all the last three that we read. The first one was definitely the most terrifying so far, but the middle two weren't as terrifying, but they still had some terrifying aspects. You know, the toilet part was probably my favorite thing about this whole video, though, so that's why I'm not too mad about it. It's just funny. But there are gonna be some scary stories in here for sure. This one, hopefully, at least have 3 out of 5. Dude, I've read mostly like eighth trip reports, 3.5 grams. Boy, we got 3 out of 5 scary trip reports in this video. But no, you can make them all scary if you want to. It just depends on how your mindset is, really. It doesn't matter. As long as you think it's scary, that's all that matters, you know. But that second one, probably the least scary one, but the other ones at least have some terrifying aspects, but especially the first one. That one was definitely a good one. The trash monster and shit. Fuck it. All right. It was my 20th birthday, and my friend I'll call B was over and was going to trip with me. He had tripped with me a few times before and was eager as I was for a good trip, with good music, talking, and bonding. I had 2 strains of mushrooms on hand, albino penis envy and lizard king. The lizard king were average potency. The albino penis envy, however, ranged from slightly above average to very potent. Sorry, there's a car. I don't think I've ever heard of lizard king strain. Wonder if to look it up after this. I made us a steak dinner and we watched random YouTube videos for a while before I prepared us both a lemon tech mushroom tea. Mine had about 1.8 grams of the penis envy, which was all in one tall and skinny white mushroom. Whoa, that's a big ass mushroom right there. While B had 3 grams of lizard king in his. We both drank our tea and watched Off the Air as the trip settled. As the effects built, we put our pre-made YouTube playlist and enjoyed the waves of the trip, and it came and went. After around 4 hours, the effects faded. So 1.8 grams of the penis envy is more than the 3 grams of lizard king, I would believe. Maybe it could be around similar. Maybe it could be the same, but I think it might be just a little bit more. It should be 3.6 grams, but I'm not sure if it's really always double, but it's always more. So it's at least 3, I'd say, for sure, of normal mushrooms. The trip wraps up and the end of the effects trail off pretty fast. Once B comes down, asks me, "Aw, is that it? It's already over? That was so cool." I tell him, "Yeah, man, it's about time for it to be coming down now." He looks at me and asks me, "Well, it's only 1:30. Can we go again?" I'm rather surprised he asked me if we should go another round. I ask if he is sure and if he wants to go in a bit heavier, and he confirms. At this point, all I had was the albino penis envy left. I made another batch of tea. I knew mushrooms built an instant tolerance, so I figured I would need a decent amount to get the desired effect. I made my tea with 4 grams of penis envy and 3 grams in his. Oh boy. I made 2 mistakes I regret dearly and have learned from. First mistake, I was taking a large dose with him, someone who had way less experience than me. The second mistake being not knowing how much the fucking potency varies from the tall and short fat ones. It was way more so than I could ever prepare for. That's good to know. I didn't know the tall is less potent than the short fat ones. Well, I mean, if it's the same, I just thought it just goes by the same. It doesn't really matter. Like, you would think the caps would have more potency, but I'm really not sure. I think it's just all, no matter what, I think it's just all in the psilocybin, it's all in there, you know. We both settled down as we are drinking our tea. I decide I want to go smoke. I go outside and take a small bong rip and came back inside. I returned into my room and B had finished his tea and was staring at the empty mug. He looks at me and sighs. I shouldn't have done that. My heart sank and I sit next to him and try to comfort him. He is still apprehensive and I ask if he wants to puke and get at least some of it out. He tells me he doesn't and asks for me to put more off the air. At around 15 minutes in, it hits both of us like a train. My vision drips lower and my blanket waves like an ocean, and I felt a hot breeze make my face go red. Never ever have I gotten visuals this intense or fast. At that moment, I knew this would be a bigger ride than I ever had. I look at B and see the utter bewilderment and terror in his face. He turns to me and says, This is bad. This is too much. I assure him that we will be okay and that we will ride it out together and that if he needed anything, I'd be there. At this point, Rick and Morty was playing on the TV. I don't know from what episode, but Rick was on some edgy monologue about life being meaningless and worthless. The content of it turned B's trip sour instantly. He looks at me and tells me, "Dude, please turn it off, turn it off." I flip back to a video we were watching earlier and shift my attention back to B. B lays back and closes his eyes and stays there for a good minute. He suddenly pops back up and starts speaking frantically with immense fear in his voice. "I think I had an ego death. I was suicidal. I felt like I knew too much. Then I was nothing." My heart instantly sank and the spike of adrenaline in the situation snaps me part way out of my trip. I was able to be coherent. I felt tremendous guilt for causing this. I tried to ground him and have him follow my breath so I could help him do 4-7-8 meditative breathing. This helped for the time being. I asked him if he wanted to take a walk outside. He lived in a quiet area by the river, so it was a peaceful spot. I was starting to get terrified myself. This was too much. He wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Was my friend going to go insane? I thought, and terror and regret filled my soul. We made our way outside and we walked and talked for a bit. The sky was clear and the moon was full, illuminating the area very well. I asked him what he experienced in there. B says, "I remember learning everything, and once I did, I wanted to kill myself, and then everything faded away, and I was nothing." Me, "Holy shit, dude, that's nuts. You went pretty deep." "Yeah, I don't like it at all. Hey, it's time." "What for?" "To cry." I wrap him in a hug and he starts sobbing in my arms. I start crying too, deeply soul-crushingly sorry for all of this. We sit down on the road facing the moon, looking over the trees and empty field ahead. Part of me was hoping we were already at peak and the worst was over. I was very wrong. Oh boy. The car's going again. I'm just going to read over it. Suddenly the trees morph into an algae-like shape and start vibrating as a ringing in my ears build. Internally I'm freaking out, but I knew this was my responsibility. I had to be in control. We stand up and start making our way towards my house. We decide to go back inside. Once there, we go to my room and sit back on my bed. I bring us a big jug of water. I take a huge sip, then I hand it to him. The jug slips out of my hand and falls onto the bed. We both crawl to the spill, but the bed was dry. We look at each other in shock, and in that moment, we both recall feeling the air getting sucked out of the room. Our conversation shifted to the YouTube playlist we had on. That's when the loop started. "Hey, we saw this already." "Yeah, well, this video was in the playlist." "We aren't on the playlist." "Yeah, I'm just playing the video again." "We saw it already." "Yeah, it was in the playlist." This went on for like 30 minutes. I checked my phone for the time and was in shock. We were only inside for 5 minutes. I show the time to B and he laughs at the absurdity. That rhymed. Until I saw a look of concern go over his face. He flops backwards and goes limp, almost falling off the bed. I grab him before he falls and he looks at me in terror. "I just became you. I was you. I was everyone, but I had to feel everything. I had to feel everyone's pain." His mood instantly shifts as he points at me in excitement. "Dude, I can see your third eye." He gives me a tight hug and says, "You are my best friend. You saved me." I tell them it was my own doing that got us in this situation. He assures me that it was an accident and that he made the choice to take it. That is true. I mean, he decided to take it. So like, you know, for you, this guy reading, I think this is honestly my favorite story of the video so far. I wouldn't feel too bad about it. You know, I would just take it for what it is. You guys wanted to do more shrooms and you only had the penis envy left. So what else were you going to do? We decide to go outside one more time. At this point, I'm in terror. I feel like I doomed my friend to death, a life in the psych ward. I felt the deepest pit of regret and guilt getting worse and worse, but I try to keep it together. I suggest we go to bed, and he very sternly says no. He tells me, that's when we die, when we go to bed. That's the end. As panic over the trip getting like this hits me again, I assure him we won't. He continues to talk about it, seems convinced we die at the end of the trip. Well, honestly, is life the trip? Life is our trip, and we die at the end of it. I think that's the truth for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Then switching randomly to talking about a friend of his in psychology class, as well as random people he knew in no structure or order of a conversation. This trip took over again. I became convinced that I broke my friend, that I ruined him. Internally, I was suicidal. We made it back inside and back to my room. He starts to ask for random things. He asked me to draw him and said I couldn't even draw sober. We chit-chat for a bit until we agree it's time to try to sleep. I walked to the spare room and I laid down. Thoughts swarmed my mind that I ruined him, that I really fucked up this time, and that there was no going back. I should go check on him, I think. I walk about halfway and turn around. No, I shouldn't bother him. I turn around and walk back and lay down in the bed. Alright. The room was silent and dark, the sounds being replaced with an ascending in pitch, a distorted ringing sound. As the pitch increased, so did the heat in this room, along with the fear and guilt. The deepest torment I have ever felt in my life. I saw strings of light around me, feeling as if they were pinning me to the bed. I start seeing the faces of his family and friends pointing at me in shame. Their faces were contorted in rage, twisting unnaturally, getting the message that I cannot be forgiven, and that the only way to make up for what I did was to die. I saw myself from the third person taking my life with a shotgun. Then the thought comes back. I should check on him. I walk to my room, and again, halfway through, I think, no, I shouldn't bother him, and I turned around and laid back in the bed, having the exact same thoughts again. That loop probably 10 times, going back and forth until the loop breaks and I return to the room B is in. I start crying and apologizing, saying that I was a monster. B, mostly sober by now, hugs me and says, "It's okay, even if we are damaged forever, we're okay. All of time has led up to this moment, and we are okay." He holds me in his arms, ensuring me I'm okay. I tell him what happened while I was away, and he tells me a story after. When I left, he had another ego death, and said he fell into a void and saw a giant game over sign as he plunged into a void, then became God. In his trip, when he heard my walk, he commanded me in his mind to turn around, which is when I turned back in my trip, convinced he was controlling me. We were both coming down at this point, and eventually we were able to fall asleep. Aftermath. We became a lot closer after that, becoming closer than I have with anyone really. There was some damage. B developed death anxiety, having lasting anxiety. I felt lasting guilt and fear for him. I couldn't heal until he was healed. We are both good now. It has been almost 2 years, and we're actually partners now. I don't trip nearly as often. I gave an even greater respect for the mushroom. All in all, we are good now. This is a trip I will never forget. That's a trip I won't ever forget either. That was a real good one. Wow. Yeah, I like that one. Maybe I should cut that out and put it in the fucking last into a video that I can read, because on the main channel. You guys, I wonder if I could do that. But anyways, that was yeah. I mean, that was see. Now, the difference between something ending positive to a bad trip versus a positive overall feeling about the trip, that's where the difference between a bad and a good trip comes along, because that was a bad trip, all right? That was, I mean, it wasn't a, okay, no, there's really no bad trips in life. I mean, it was a bad experience. Like, there's a lot of bad experiences, but it usually leads you to good things. Now, there could be bad trips that really lead you down a terrible path, and like you can't get out of it for months. Now, those are like truly, truly bad trips. But bad trips that lead you to like coming closer to somebody, you know, they're bad at the time, bad experiences, but it ends up being a good trip once you look over it back in the day. But that was still worse than like the other ones where, you know, they're bad things happen, but it was overall a good trip. This was overall not such a good trip. I think that was probably the best one out there, for sure. I kind of wish I would have read it in the beginning, because people are probably asleep by now. But if you're not, hey, give this video a like and subscribe if you're new, if you want. I don't care. But yeah, we got an hour and 7 minutes of this read. Lots of time, buddy boy, lots of fucking time. But yeah, I don't know if I should cut that into a video. We'll see for sure. I mean, that was, but no, because I can't, because it's it's not my Trip Keeper voice. It's my normal reading voice, and people might be thrown off about it. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful night, day. You know, if you're having a night, if you're reading this, if you're listening to this during the day, have a good day. If you're reading this, if you're listening to this at night, have a good night. If you're listening to this in the morning, have a good morning. Oh my God. Good morning, good evening, and good night. Not great, not terrible. I'm watching Chernobyl again. I just can't. Dyatlov is like one of the best, worst characters of all time. Worst as in like a terrible person. Dude, that guy is so fucking funny. If you guys have seen this show, you guys know what I'm talking about. That guy was like a perfectly written character. He was such an asshole. He's like a Gordon Ramsay of Chernobyl, nuclear reactors. But Gordon Ramsay has some nice aspects to him, and I don't think he lies. I mean, that's the problem. He tells too much of the truth. So they're like the polar opposites, but they're the same with like screaming at each other. Yeah, but it's such a good show. I recommend watching it now. It's like now that it's fully marinated in my mind, it's like one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. I'd probably put it above Breaking Bad. For sure. Now there's only 5 episodes, which could be misconstrued about how my ranking is. Sopranos will never be beat. I'm rewatching it again. I'm on season 2 now. I just finished the whole first season. It took me about a week this time, a little longer than a week, because I haven't really been in the mood to watch anything recently. I've just been like putting it on sparingly. I also saw the movie La Haine, which was really good. I recommend watching that movie. But yeah, trying to think what else. I didn't watch anything else, I don't think. Yeah, that's about it. So I watched Sopranos, Chernobyl again, and La Haine. I need to watch another movie pretty soon here. Another movie I haven't seen. I gotta get all this shit on my watch list on Letterboxd. But yeah, I thought this would be interesting. There's a lot more Penis Envy stories, so there'll be a part 2, maybe even a part 3. But that was already long enough. So there'll definitely there's a lot of Penis Envy trip reports on my Reddit community. So keep on uploading them. Keep on doing what you can. And be happy out there, because I know being happy is such a great feeling, and everyone should experience happiness. So yeah, have a wonderful day, guys, and bless everyone.